All right. Hi guys, welcome back to PKFX YouTube trading channel. So this will be the usual weekend game plan for the upcoming days. However, it's not a Sunday. The market is not closed. In fact, the market has already opened. Today is Monday, and you can see the timer has already been counting down. So this is pretty much Monday night for me. In fact, right now the New York session is going on. So I would say a slight delay in terms of doing the overall weekend game plans. The ideal thing to do is to actually do the game plans during the weekends when the market is closed, so that your analysis is completely unbiased, because there is no way that you could actually enter a trade while making the analysis, making the top-down analysis, compared to when the market has already opened. There may be some tendency of you to think that, hey, I may miss out this trade, might as well I just enter right now, right? However, I'm going to try and keep it completely unbiased and going to walk through the currency pairs as usual. I've already shortlisted the currency pairs that I'm interested to look at in the upcoming days for potential trades. To start off with, let's go ahead and jump into AUDCHF. So this particular trade, I've already entered this trade and have been holding on for the past few days. And as we can see, if I go to the weekly candlestick pattern, the weekly, we saw that the market pretty much rallied over here to this area and started to stall out. And last week it had a great push, to be honest. And we saw the curvature over here nicely working through this resistance zone, where the round psychological number is also coming in, and ample of weeks that has taken place for liquidity grab. And now I believe the market is slowly trending towards the downside. Weekly is still a buy. So the reason for the entry, technically it's a counter trend trade, but I'm expecting at minimum to come back and retest this structure point. If I go to the daily right now is pretty much a sell, right? This is the lower low and this is the lower high that was only recently created. Today it has been full of a pullback, right? In fact, I identified this particular area over here to be a potential strong support area, because I see some structure points nicely forming up, and the daily EMA is also coming in as well. So I was expecting some sort of a bounce over here, but looks like it has bounced earlier. Now, if I go to the 4 hour, since the daily is a sell, the 4 hour technically right now is also a sell, this being the lower low and this being the lower high. So far, the market structure is pretty intact. In fact, the way I see it is I wanted the market to break below, come back and retest, reject from this EMA and continue to rally downwards, which the market kind of did. It did break below, came back and retest, tried to break below again, but I see a second pullback and then it broke down again. My expectation was the market to continue to rally downwards with some sort of movements over here as a support, but I see the market has come back up again to retest this area. So in terms of trade management, there's literally nothing that I want to do, right? Because technically the 4 hour is still a sell, and my stop loss placement is at 39 pips above this particular zone where I'm expecting some sort of a resistance to play out. So I'm going to continue to hold this trade. If it hits my stop loss, it is what it is. But my expectation is for it to reject, for this resistance zone to hold, and eventually the market to rally all the way down, breaking past this daily support area as well. And once the market is down here, I'll see what to do. If the market hits my stop loss, then it is what it is. So basically, AUDCHF, weekly is a buy, daily is a sell, 4 hours is a sell. I'm in a sell right now, and I'm going to continue to let the trade play out as it is. Moving on, if I were to go to the USDCHF pair on a weekly basis, right? Let me just zoom in. So USDCHF, this is the lower low and this is the lower high. So technically, the weekly is a sell. The market had a strong pullback and then started rallying down. This area acted as a support. It got pushed and rejected around this area as a daily resistance, and now it's reversing or rolling back again into a sell. So weekly is a sell, and if I choose to sell, it's a pro trend trade, right? Daily, technically, this is the higher high and this is the higher low. So daily is a buy, right? And I see right now the market has come to this area and rejected already. Any sort of pullback would be a good entry point to buy. The market has clearly, if I go to the 4 hour, right? Clearly broken below this particular area where the 4-hour EMA is also rolling over, and I have the round psychological number to also act as a resistance with proper 1 to 2.5 risk to reward. Any sort of a pullback, I think it would be a good entry point given that the lower time frame shifts to sell as well. So it will be in alignment with the 4-hour sell. Technically, you have the higher low, sorry, the lower high, lower low, the next lower high, followed by lower low. This is what I'm expecting. So I'm keeping an eye for USDCHF for a potential entry. Moving on to the weekly for the GBPJPY pair. Now, this particular pair has not been easy. Weekly, this is the higher high, this is the higher low, and it had a very strong pullback. This area held, and now it's pushing back up, and I think it's most probably going to continue to rally upwards, making new all-time high. Now, if I were to really zoom out, you can see it is literally at its highest point it has ever been. So once again, it is super risky to just enter a trade when it is actually trying to make an all-time high, right? However, I believe any sort of pullback would be a good capture to continue to rally upwards. So right now, if I were to look at the daily candlestick pattern, let me just adjust the higher high because no, this candle has not closed yet. So technically this candle is the closed candle. This was the previous high. Right now, it's trying to turn the daily sell into a daily buy. So just to explain this clearly, right? This was the daily lower low. If I were to pull this line outwards over here, you can clearly see this is the daily lower low, and this area was the daily lower high. If I were to pull this outside, this is the daily lower high. So technically, right now, as we speak, the daily is a sell. And then today, the market is rallying, and if the candle closes today above, anywhere above this line, then the buyers for the daily shifts from sell into a buy, which is actually in our favor. So I don't see any reason to enter the trade today itself. Let the candle close to change the buyers in our direction as well. That way you'll have weekly buy, daily buy, 4-hour buy. You have more confluences in your favor, right? If I go to the 4-hour candlestick, right, I see that it has been putting a new higher high, and it keeps putting a new higher high, this being the higher low. So obviously my expectation is to not chase this particular trade, right? I'm expecting some sort of a good pullback as I've drawn in this blue arrow over here. I need the market to give me a proper pullback so that it comes back over here, and now I have the round psychological number of 214.000 to act as a support. I would have the EMA to grow up here to act as a support. I have this base that is changing from a resistance into a support, and a bounce and a confirmation of the lower time frame will be a good indication. Hey, you know what, this trade is probably going to make a new higher high, let's go in. So that is GBPJPY. Moving on to AUDCAD on a weekly basis. Now, AUDCAD, pretty quickly, the weekly is a buy. It is very clear this is the higher high, this is the higher low, market pullback, retest this previous structure point, bounced, broke above, and currently going towards the high. And the next potential resistance zone, I mentioned here 2016 because there was no particular area of resistance previously unless I go back like freaking 10 years ago, right? So there was no structure point, meaning to say right now AUDCAD is pretty much at a high point that it has not made for the past almost 10 years, right? Before I could actually see this area over here where some sort of structure starts coming in, right? And that's why I mentioned clearly over there that, hey, this area is potentially a structure point that's coming into play. Now, will it be a strong structure point? I don't know, because this structure point I'm capturing from 10 years ago, but at least we need some sort of a reason to say this is my take profit area, right? So this area would potentially act as a resistance. Weekly is a buy. Daily, if I go down to daily, and I can see that the daily, this is the higher high and this is the higher low. So technically it didn't break below this area here, so this is still the structure point, right? And I can see the EMA is growing up as well. So any candle closure today above like this is good. The following day, any pullback is also good, and then we can consider for an entry, right? Daily is also a buy. 4 hour, technically right now it has also shifted into a buy, so I can change this as a 4 hour as a buy as well. So all three time frames are pretty much in sync, which is great. Same thing, I need it to follow the blue line that I've drawn over here. I need a pullback and then a break above this area to confirm that, hey, it's going to go in my direction. Let's just go ahead for AUDCAD buy. So this is what I'm looking for, and hopefully the market pulls back in the upcoming days. Now, can it continue to rally upwards? Of course, definitely. It's just, you know, a few more pips to go ahead and hit TP, and if that happens, then it's never our trade, right? We'll never chase the trade. Let the trade come to us. We got to be patient, and based on the previous lessons learned, let the trade come to us, and then we enter the trade, right? For a better risk to reward. In this case, this is plus minus 1 to 2 risk to reward. We can adjust accordingly when the trade comes over there. But yeah, AUDCAD, a buy. Moving on to weekly on the AUDJPY pair. Let me see over here. Okay, so weekly for the AUDJPY, technically the weekly is a buy. It's actually trying to break into a new higher high as we speak right now, but notice that all this candle has not closed above this high point, and it has been struggling, like really struggling to break above. So any sort of clear break above this week would indicate that the market is going to continue to rally upwards, right? If not, if the market closed this week down here as well, then I would be expecting a strong sell. But knowing that it's a JPY pair, I believe there is a higher chance to break above as well. But unless it does that, we don't confirm it yet. So there is a potential counter trend trade into a sell over here. This is what I'm looking at, right? If I go to the daily, the weekly is a buy. So the daily right now is a sell. This is the lower low and this is the lower high, which was not broken previously, and the market came back down again, retesting. If it confirms below again, then a good sell is in place because the daily EMA is right here. It hasn't grown all the way up here. So I'm going to keep an eye for the 4 hour as well. The 4 hour as we speak right now is a buy, right? I'm looking at the 1 hour candlestick as well. Any sort of break below over here and the break below the EMA, and if you want further confirmation before you enter, you want it to break all the way down here, form a few candles before going back up here, then it would be a good entry point for you to say that, hey, you know what, I'm going to go counter trend trade AUDJPY for a sell. But it's risky, so we got to make sure that we are only risking a small amount over here, but we can somehow manage to get a 1 to 2 risk to reward, and let's see how it plays out. Moving on to GBPUSD. GBPUSD on a weekly basis. So technically this is the higher high, this is the higher low. So weekly is a buy. It had a strong pullback. Previous candle closed here, next candle is opening here and breaking above this particular zone, making this as a potential support. EMA is growing from below, which is great. Prime psychological number is right here as well, which is great. If I look at daily is a strong sell, and right now the market is trying to break above this daily EMA, and if it closes like that, any sort of pullback I believe will have a bounce to continue to rally upwards. Daily is a sell. Right now 4 hour, if I were to look at the 4 hour, technically this was the lower low and this was the lower high. So as long as it has not broken above here, the 4 hour is still a sell. The 4 hour is still a sell, but I'm interested in a pro trend trade to follow the weekly. So I'm expecting some sort of a pullback down here so that I can say, hey, you know what, it's coming back here to retest this structure point, right? And the EMA is coming up here. The round psychological number can act as my base as well. This will be a good entry point. With the lower time frame confirmation, I can enter this trade. So this is another trade that might play out tomorrow. I'm going to keep an eye on this GBPUSD for a potential buy, which is a pro trend trade. Moving on to the weekly on the AUDUSD pair. Now, AUDUSD weekly is also a buy. This is the higher high, this is the higher low. right? The market came back, retested this previous structure point. This is actually a confirmation of the retest of this previous structure point, and it's bouncing back now. So high potential to continue the pro trend trade as a buy, right? The daily, this is the lower low, this is the lower high. So technically the daily is still a sell, right? Good thing is the EMA is growing upwards over here now, which we can use as a base. The 4 hour, if I were to look at the 4 hour, technically this is the lower low and this is the lower high. As long as the market has not broken that, the 4 hour is also a sell. This is exactly the same as the previous pair. I wanted the chart to show me its hand first by breaking above and then pulling back. I got the clear break above. I need that clear pullback, which I don't know if it will happen or not, because the 4 hour EMA is coming over here. So this potentially is not one of my personal favorite. I'm going to just monitor and see what the market does. Most probably, I think it's going to just rally upwards and will probably miss this trade. So it's not one of my priority over here. I have other pairs that I'm going to continue to look at. So let's go on to the next pair, EURUSD. So EURUSD, now this pair right now, the weekly EMA itself is coming in, and if I really zoom in, we can clearly see how nicely this pair has worked out so far. This is the lower low and this is the lower high, right? So technically the weekly is a sell. So when the weekly sell worked out over here, it kind of bounced over this EMA acting as a support, and now it's reversing. In fact, if I put it into proper structure, this looks like it's not really a doji yet, but almost like a doji, right? So I'm expecting some sort of a push towards the upside. If I go to the daily, technically the daily, this was the higher high, this was the higher low. So daily is still a buy, but I understand the daily EMA is coming in over here, which can act as a potential resistance, which I need to break through in order to hit my TP. So it's a bit risky as well. If I go to the 4 hour, the 4 hour is a sell, this being the lower low, this being the lower high. Technically haven't broke above. In fact, any sort of pullback right now, I still wouldn't enter, because even though the market, if I zoom in, has actually closed above the line, this is not a significant close above. I need the market to break like this, right, to shift the 4 hour buyers from a sell into a buy, and that can only be that can be only confirmed when a 4 hour candle closes above this 4 hour line of this lower high. This is the lower low, this is the lower high. This line, once it's broken, the 4 hour will now form a new higher high. So then the 4 hour will shift into a buy. That way I'll have the daily as a buy, the 4 hour as a buy. More reason to enter this counter trend trade. Why counter trend trade? Because the weekly is still a sell. I'm going against the weekly, right? So when it breaks above, any sort of pullback might be a good entry point, but I'll keep an eye on this one. Next is USDCAD. So if I look at the weekly for USDCAD, technically this is the higher high, higher low. So weekly is a buy. And if I go to the daily, before that on the weekly, I see that the EMA, if I zoom in, right, last week closed above the weekly EMA. So now it's going to come in as a support if I choose to buy, which is with the trade, right, which is great. Daily, if I go to the daily candlestick, it kept creating new higher high. This is the higher low. So I would say the daily is a very strong upward direction. In fact, if it's not clear, let me just draw the line outwards like this for a clear picture, that this is the new higher high and this is the previous higher low, and this trend right now is still a very strong buy, and I believe a break above and a retest will give us the continuation for the buy pattern. I don't know if we'll get that right now. Can I enter this trade where it's already at my 1 to 2 risk to reward? Yes, but I probably wouldn't, because for me, this is from the previous lesson learned. As long as it doesn't break above this area, technically I'm buying into a resistance. I am buying into a resistance that can roll over. That's exactly what happened in the CAD JPY trades previously. So I've already been burnt previously. I do not want to make the same mistake again, and this is why journaling is super important, right? We learn from our previous mistakes, right? So I need the market to break above and then pull back, and then I'll enter. Now, can it break above and continue to rally to my TP? Yes. And if that happens, as usual, it was never our trade. I'd rather be patient and see what the market has to offer. I'm still expecting the same thing to play out. Let the market show its hand first, let it break above in the upcoming days. If it does, great. If not, if it goes down here to get this as a support and then continue to break upwards, I'll still wait patiently. Let's just see what happens to the market, right? So that's USDCAD. And another pair that I have over here, if I go to the weekly candlestick for GBPAUD, Great Britain Pound, Australian Dollar. Now, if I look at the weekly, pretty much this is the lower low and this is the lower high. Weekly is a sell. Market had a strong pushback, and I believe this was pretty much, if I remove all the drawings over here, I could see that the market kind of had a week technically to retest the previous structure point. Can it come back to firmly retest this structure point before rolling over? Maybe, but this week still counts as it has retested this area before pushing downwards. So bringing back all the diagrams and the drawings, I'm still expecting the market to rally upwards before it gets rejected and pushed downwards, simply because I have the round psychological number of 1.90,000, which is a very strong round cycle. So I gotta see if that plays out, but weekly is a sell. If I go to daily, technically it's still a buy. So this being the higher high, this being the higher low, and you see like the daily EMA is also strongly coming down. So most probably, even if it tests above here, I don't know if I'll get a good entry point here. Maybe it will just roll over from here because the daily EMA is now, cruising downwards like this. Most probably this itself will act as a resistance, right? But let's say in the event that it comes up here and buffers a little bit and start pushing down, great. This is my sell trade over here. Daily bias right now is a buy. 4-hour bias right now is a buy as well. And I understand that the market has to be continuously in the buy form for it to come over here, and then I can go with the pro trend trade as a weekly sell. So that's GBPAUD. I'm waiting patiently to see what the market does. Finally, I want to touch pretty much Bitcoin as well. So Bitcoin, if I go to the daily candlestick pattern, this is something that we drew previously, where I mentioned that this is a clear bear flag for me, where this is a huge sell followed by a 45 degrees bear flag formation, where high chances it tend to break towards the downside. Now, can it continue to rally upwards and continue in this channel? Probably, but I don't know if Bitcoin is going to do that one more time to come back and retest this area. In fact, if I were to just simply drag this further like this, right, most probably it could even come back, rally, and still get pushed back down here and then roll over. But to be fair, what I believe is happening right now is potentially the bear flag playing out, as like what we have been discussing all this while. If I go to the weekly trend, the weekly is still a sell. I see the weekly 50 EMA is coming down here to push. At the same time, if I close the weekly EMA and open up the 200 SMA, the yellow line over here, it's coming in as a support. So Bitcoin has to pretty much decide in these upcoming days where it's going to go. I personally believe, and my bias is towards the sell, because the monthly is sell, the weekly is sell, the daily is sell. I want to sell, right? I'm not selling into this trade, but I'm waiting for a potential buy point, which I believe the Bitcoin candles in the upcoming weeks may potentially roll over to come over here, potentially act as a support, but sooner or later it may just break below this yellow line. And when it does, I believe at that point of time, only that point of time, Bitcoin is extremely undervalued, and that's where a potential buy entry can take place. This is just as per my analysis, without considering any news, any fundamental issues or whatsoever, purely technical, purely candlestick, and that's what I'm going to be looking at. I do not care about what they are saying in the news. I'm just going to follow as per the trades. I'm utilizing my Forex knowledge into cryptocurrency, and I'm going to wait patiently before I make any sort of purchases over here. So that's about it, guys. That's the weekend game plan. It's already Monday, but yeah, these are the pairs that I'm looking at. AUDCHF still playing out. I don't know if it's going to hit my stop loss or take profit, but essentially one of them has to hit, and I'll continue to monitor. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time and have a good day. Thank you.